Control decks in Magic are decks that focus their efforts on disrupting play and controlling the game by using spells like kill spells, counter spells, and bounce spells. Playing against control decks is characterized by having every single thing you play countered or killed immediately, followed by the eventual smashing of everything you own in a frustrated orgy of violence and destruction. You're probably going to need to buy a new keyboard, or you could follow these helpful tips on how to deal with bastard no fun control decks. This is 5 ways to beat control decks. Number 5, cheap aggro. A cheap aggro deck, especially one focused on haste, can often overwhelm a control deck playing player. If you are able to take your opponent's health considerably down by turns 4 or 5, you have a pretty good chance of winning against control. Haste has the advantage against removal that may not be instant speed, allowing you to get in for damage before your opponent can kill your creature. Another thing about cheap aggro decks is that control players really value their removal spells, and forcing them to use one of those really good removal spells on one of your cheap dinks is not something a control player is really going to want to do. Number 4, go wide. Keeping with the aggro theme, if you're able to play a ton of creatures, it can be difficult for a control player to keep on top of your rapidly expanding creature base. 2 types of decks that usually achieve this are cheap dink decks like Hasty Red or cheap ass Merfolk, or token-based decks like vampires or anything else that generates just a bunch of tokens. Just like I mentioned before, a control player really values their removal spells, and forcing a control player to bust out a premium exile removal card on a 2/2 token is really a win for you. One important thing to note is you will need ways to increase the toughness of your creatures eventually. Cheap little dinks are vulnerable to cards that affect all creatures, such as Golden Demise. It's important to know what people are playing in the current meta. So if you know that it's 2/2 to all creatures, you want to get your creatures above that mark. If it's 3/3, you're going to have to get them above 3. Number 3, understand when you can play things. In the case of blue, keeping an eye on untapped or open mana is the key to knowing what you can play and when. Knowing the type of counter spells available and what their casting costs or requirements are is equally important. For instance, in the current state of Magic Arena, you can bet that 2 blue and 1 of any color mana open means that they have a cancel in hand. 1 blue and any other might mean they have a Essence Scatter or Negate. It could also mean that they have a Censor in hand, a spell played by many control players right now because they're able to cycle it out with 1 blue. Censor counters a spell unless its controllers pay 1, so maybe bet to hold an open mana before casting something. Number 2, wait. When you realize you're playing against a control jerk who counters or kills everything but plays nothing themselves, if you just wait, they may not be able to do anything. Your opponent's hand is probably full of counters or kill spells with nothing to target. Sometimes if you play things at the right time, you can get them on the board. For instance, often at the end of your turn, an opponent who had been waiting to counter your things will tap their untapped mana to draw more cards. It is in that instance that, well, you can play instants. Direct damage to the face or creatures with flash can sneak on the board in these moments. But the easiest way to get around a counter spell is to outplay them. Waiting till you have lots of mana and several creatures to play, then playing them all at once means that they may counter 1 or 2, but probably not the 3rd. Best make sure that your better creature is the 3rd creature. And number 1, and the one you probably don't want to hear, if you can't beat them, join them. Why not build yourself a control deck? Because control decks are the anti-fun of decks in Magic, because I never play one, only dicks play them, and because fuck you, you suck. Okay, here, relax, I'm not trying to trigger anyone here. You have valid points, especially that last one, but there are a couple advantages to building and playing a control deck. The main one being that you can better understand the mind of a control player. Knowledge is power, and knowing is really half the battle. G.I. Joe. Thanks, G.I. Joe. But really, if you can figure out how to win with a control deck, then you can also see where control is left open, giving you an opportunity to exploit those openings in future games. If you're playing a control deck and somebody's kicking your butt with aggro, make a note, see what they're doing. See what they're doing that's beating a control deck, because it's probably not just beating yours, it's beating others. then go back to the drawing board and see if you can build or brew something similar to what they have. All right, well, that's it. That was 5 ways that you can beat control decks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that one of these 5, if not more, has helped you to defeat the most annoying to play against deck ever, Control. And of course, in the background, you're watching me play Control and ruining people's nights. So sorry if that was one of you. It's just the current way to win right now. If you want to see more videos, go ahead and subscribe and all that crap that people say at the end of these. But it is important, especially in this day and age, to remember that I'm the button toucher and no one touches my buttons. I'm aware there's another jerk out there with a button toucher YouTube channel, but I made it first. I am the button toucher. You're not this guy should be not touching any of my buttons. He shouldn't be going anywhere near them. So I would just like to officially state that he needs to stop, cease and desist from touching any of these buttons, because I am the one. Anyways, that's the end of my video here. Thanks for watching, and I don't know, keep looking at the stars, folks. Jeez.